Okay, so now that we have our battery lead and all of our ESCs soldered up, we can go ahead and solder on the motors. So let's go ahead, open this one up. I believe I've already taken a little tool out of this one. And so we have the motor. Came with the little tool that I already took out. Here it is. And then it comes with some mounting screws. And we'll probably want to use the longer of those two mounting screws. But before we mount, it's best we're going to want to solder this on. So as you can see right here, it's pretty close, but we're going to end up kind of pushing this back here so we have a little bit more room to solder. But we don't want, we don't want too much, otherwise it'll start getting too bunched up. And we're going to use the heat shrink that came with the ESC. So let's go ahead and cut this in half. Guess I should probably use scissors. There we go. So just that little part is what we'll need. We can go ahead and slip this up over here. And then we'll slip it down after we do the soldering. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Snipped across. This still feels a bit bunched. Yeah, we're going to need to cut off more. So let's see, how much wire do we want left over? So I'm just going to trim off just another little fraction. Another little fraction. We want enough to work with, but we don't want everything bunched up too much. Okay, so that looks just about the right length. So to show you how much is left, right there, so like 1 ESC length, a little bit more than the ESC length is how long you want those. And so we're going to go ahead, and strip the motor wires. So I have all of these motor leads stripped. And so we're going to go ahead and pre-tin them. And we're going to go ahead and pre-tin the ESC as well. There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay, and so for this first, so this is the first motor here. Motor number 1. So let's go ahead. Connect that first one. Second one. And third one. So now that we have that on, and I put in the screws, so let's go ahead to this motor number 2. So open up another motor. Stickers, yay. And then we get another tool. We're going to get 4 of those. Let's pull out these screws. Okay. The motor goes right there. Okay, so we actually want this motor now to spin the opposite direction. So that is actually really simple with brushless motors. So instead of doing the 3 wires as we did before, we're going to do the 3 wires, but we need to cross one of the wires, or cross 2 of the wires, switch where they're going. So let's go ahead and so I think the length that we said before was 1 ESC length. So roughly that much. Let's see, how much is that getting cut off? Not quite 1 ESC length, and a little bit longer than the width. Yeah, there's not, oh, there we go. About the width of one of the arms. Probably, so the skinny part of the arm is how much you're cutting off. Okay. And snip. So let's see here. Yeah, so that'll push that down like this, but we need to cross over 2 of these. So it's going to look like that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead now and strip these motor wires. Okay. One, two, three. Let's go ahead and pre-tin. we go. Okay. Oops, and we don't want to forget the heat shrink. So we'll go ahead and use this other half that we cut off. Yeah, there's nothing like finding out you forgot the heat shrink. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this middle crossover first, since that one will be the most difficult. Oh, I forgot to pre-tin the ESC pads. There we go. Come on. There we go. And there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this first. This first crossover one. Just let it flow in together. There we go. Now this crossover one, cross under I guess. And this final one. And there we go. We have motor number 2 soldered up. Let's go ahead and slip this heat shrink over that, and we'll need to go back and use either a soldering iron or a hot air gun or a hot hair dryer to go ahead and close up the heat shrink. So now I'm gonna just add in 2 screws again so it's not wobbling around while we're still building. At the end of this build, before we fly, we'll want to make sure we get the rest of those screws in there. And all of them, one thing I forgot to mention is all of my nuts are going the same way. If you got threaded, it doesn't really matter, but ideally you want, the self-tightening ones to be on the correct side. So for this one, the propellers will be spinning the top here inwards, and on this side, the top here over here will be going inwards. Okay, let's go on to the next ESC. So let's go grab another. First thing, heat shrink. Get your heat shrink on there before you forget about it. So here we have that little heat shrink. Let's go ahead and cut it in half. Snip one side. Snip the other. And yeah, as you see, the top of this already has heat shrink, so you just need the heat shrink for that bottom part. And this could be a little bit difficult since we have this in the way. I think we'll be okay. Oh, I need another motor. Motor number 3. Another tool. More screws. Long screws, short screws. Okay. So the standard consensus is roughly one ESC length, which translates into one width of an arm is what we cut off. Snip. And so this is motor number 3. We want it going the same direction as motor number 1. So it's just the normal straight across, easy. A little bit easier soldering. Don't need to worry about wires crossing over each other. Okay. Now for some pre-tinning. Okay. And pre-tin the ESC. There we go. Get off the extra solder. Okay. Now I don't know if I did it on the other one, but I actually like to probably doesn't matter too much. Yeah, this power cable is going to be in the way a little bit. There we go. Flow together. Just let those two parts flow together. Oh, I don't know when they both turn to liquid. Okay. There we go, soldered on. So move the, I'll wait to move the heat shrink down. Let's first put on 2 of these longer screws. Oops, tightened that a little bit more than I would have liked. I still want to be able to move it around to get it in place for second screw. And if you want, you can probably put on all 4 right now, but okay. And let's slide this heat shrink down. This one seems like it's going to be a little bit tougher. There we go. Okay. And on to this last motor. So I'll put the heat shrink on first thing before we forget. And pull out the last motor. Well, you're going to have plenty of these tools. And each of these bags come with 5 screws of both the big and little, so you should have 4 long screws extra, and then lots of those little bit shorter ones. Okay, so we said we are cutting off that much. I'll do this other hand since I'm right-handed. The width of the arm. Snip, snip. Okay. And strip these down. Okay. And pre-tinning. Okay, clean off the soldering iron. Okay. And pre-tin the ESC. And so this is another crossover one. There we go. So what did we do first last time? Doesn't matter exactly which way we do it, as long as just 2 of those wires are switched in spots. So let's go ahead and solder on that middle one. Kind of soldered a little bit longer than I would have liked. There we go. Longer, I mean, it went farther out. I'm going to add just a little bit more solder to this one here. the last one on this side. It's not really staying down by itself, so I'm just going to use the knife here to help push that down. And that flowed nicely together. So you can see that middle one is a little bit longer. I'm thinking if I heat it up a little bit, it'll flow. There we go. Kind of flowed a little bit better that way. Flowed so it was more centered on the pad, not on the very edge like it was before. And that's all 4 of our motors, but I guess we should put a couple of the long screws on here. To hold it in place. And these screws aren't that long, the ones that come with the motors. There's just a longer and a shorter one. I definitely don't think I'd feel comfortable putting the shorter ones on here, but these longer ones are just about long enough. Any shorter and they would be too short for this thick frame. 2 screws on. There we go, and go ahead and slide this heat shrink down. And there we have it. Oops, so that was motor number 4. So let's get back the direction that we want it. There we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4 motors.